Football, yeah. Is that a jingle? I don't know, man. It's hard to say. Let's get the music going. Let's get this thing rocking. We got a lot of football to talk about. We got, man, so many things. Just so many things. I have an 8-pack of picks. I think I'm committed to this new strategy of taking high payout parlays that synergize with one another perfectly. I'm starting to see it like it's the Matrix. And I think we were doing too many teasers early in the year. We had a positive year. I'm just trying to adjust come playoff time because it feels like things change. And there feels like there's a lot of money out there to be won on these games. Because we talked about how we like dogs very much. I'm still on that. And I've been working in alternative spreads to get everyone to be a dog. So woof woof, here we go. I really like the player props for star players come this time of year. This is where they really separate themselves. And if you can get those things to speak to each other and then maybe sometimes do an alternative over-under or something like that, you can get really big payouts to the point where you only need to hit 1 out of 4 of these to really profit. So like I said, last week we went up 6.3 units, I think, and we only hit like 3 out of 9. But it was great. You could have a really big week otherwise, and most of the time we're not going to strike out. I mean, you know, knock on wood, I'm called the Mush for a reason. But still, I like these games. They're very interesting. A lot of good quarterback matchups. Some rematches. We're going to get into it all. Let's dive in, see where we can get to. Let's talk about line movement first. And there hasn't really been too much. Cincinnati, Tennessee opened up a 2.5. Have moved to a 3.5. I've seen it at 4 in some places. I imagine some action will come back on Cincinnati. That might settle at 3.5. It's probably going to stay there, but it wouldn't even shock me if it got to 3. So that's an interesting one. San Francisco, Green Bay has just been moving Green Bay's way. But today we get good news on San Francisco's injury report. Seems like Bosa's going to play. Clears concussion protocol, which is terrifying because apparently anyone's just allowed to play after their concussions now if it's a playoff game. But in any case, he's going to help him. Warner sounds like he's going to play. So I imagine that could move back towards San Francisco a little bit. Maybe it lands at 5. Who knows? That's right before kickoff. But that's the game's on Saturday, so maybe it'll stick. Rams-Tampa just hasn't really moved between 2.5 and 3. I can't imagine it will. I think the Rams deserve respect after last week, so 2.5 makes sense there, and I'm tempted with that game in a lot of ways. And Buffalo, Kansas City, I can't believe Kansas City started as a 2.5 point favorite and now is 1.5. And it's like, oh my God, are we for real? The Kansas City Chiefs. I know Buffalo's a darling and they're red hot and they smoked them last week. But man, this feels disrespectful to Kansas City to me. And I'm not putting my bread and butter on the spread in that game at all. But it is really crazy to think that we can get Mahomes at home at 1.5 or a money line for cheap. It feels wrong. And you always got to beware of the team that has too much hype, that we're buying too hard into. But Buffalo looked great. So, you know, let's break down each individual game, give some thoughts, and then dive into the specific picks. Cincinnati, Tennessee. Now, Cincinnati's offense has been awesome, and you gotta wonder at this point if they're gonna win. Joe Burrow is just gonna put the cape on, and he's gonna just prove that he belongs in the conversation with Allen and Mahomes, right? That he's close to the Peyton Manning mold, and that with 3 really good receivers and a good running back, that any game is going to be winnable for him. So these are the postseason stats. He looked good. The regular season stats, you start to look and you're like, what's missing here? Nothing. 4,500 yards, 70% completion, 34 touchdowns, 14 picks. I really mean the Peyton Manning thing, and I think Peyton Manning is a legend, one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen play, for sure. But I see some similarities there. Maybe not the pre-snap stuff, but he's able to identify defenses the same way. which is really, really high praise. I don't think Peyton never completed 70% of his passes. Ever. And it's a different era. But still, 4,600 yards, it's an extra game. Wow, Peyton had 5,400. I mean, are you kidding me with this Denver season? But in any case, I think the comparison makes a little sense with the way the teams are constructed. And so here early in the week, I really was all over Cincinnati. I was like, I'm just going to take them at plus 7.5. I'll get an alternate line. I'll be safe with that. I think they can win. I think it's important if you're going to take a dog that you believe they can win the game at this point in the year because wonky stuff can happen. And I definitely thought they can win. And the more I think about it, the more I've moved over to the Tennessee side because injury stuff, Bengals have 2 defensive starters out and Trey Hendrickson is going to play but is still working his way back from injury. So I'm worried about a defense that is intriguing, but anyone who loses 2 starters at this point in the year, I can't be psyched about. And this team does have puzzling losses. Like, so do the Titans, but you look back at the Bengals losses and they were healthy for their losses, which is crazy. They lose to the Jets. They lose to the Browns. Both of those were bad. Both games they had their players, right? At least Tennessee, when you see them lose to both these teams lost to the Jets. Like, what are we doing? How are we here? And I'm wearing green today. But how are we here? I mean, one of these teams could play in the Super Bowl. One of these teams is going to the AFC Championship, and they both lost to the Jets. But Tennessee lost to the Jets when they had nobody. They had no skill players. And I think Tennessee is better coached. I think they have the better defense, the healthier defense. I think they're the healthier team overall. Henry's back. He's going to play. All reports say he looks pretty good. It's a foot injury. You have to be a little concerned, but he could shred this Bengals D. They don't have a good run defense. They're missing some pieces. I'm worried about the Bengals. And I don't want to go against him either because I acknowledge that Burrow could just put the team on his back. And I like Chase. And at this point in the year, I think that some of those receivers can really just break the game. So I'm just not really eager to pick a side anymore. I don't know what to do with it. I can see both ways. And so there won't be a side for this game on my card, I don't think. I hope I'm not lying to you guys. There's my pick history if you want to see it. Yeah, as of now, I like some props in this game. I mentioned Henry. I like the receivers. But that's really it. I don't know what to do with Tannehill. He usually rises to the occasion in these kind of moments, but he's not my favorite quarterback. I don't think he's the better quarterback in this game. Like I said, the Tennessee defense scares me. I think the Bengals got away with one last week because I liked the Raiders because their pass rush against a bad Bengals offensive line. And their offensive line didn't get better. And the Tennessee defense provides a lot of issues also. So I'm torn on this one. And I think a lot of people should probably be torn, right? There's a lot of outcomes that make sense here. So I don't want to dig too deep into it. I mean, everyone's been talking about it. A lot of people on the Titans from what I'm seeing. The spread held. It went up towards the Titans. And I could totally see the argument for Cincinnati. And I could totally see the argument for teasing them up. But at that point, I think if you're banking on them being so good and Burrow putting the team on his back, you'd probably just bet him to win, right? Because if he forces this game into a shootout, I don't think Tennessee is going to win the game. I think Tennessee wants to slow the game down, have long drives, bash it through with Henry, and just rely on time of possession and defense. So I would think if you like the over, you'd like Cincinnati. If you like the under, you like Tennessee. I'm going to stay away from all of it and just go with props. We'll get there at the end. San Francisco, Green Bay. Now, these two teams played each other. Let's bring up that box score. But it was a long, long time ago. Week 3. And this game was close. Came right down to the wire. I think we got a Trey Lance touchdown on this game, right? Yeah, we did. Might see more of that with Jimmy G banged up. We don't know what his health is like. He's probably going to play, but it's going to be freezing cold. He's got multiple injuries. I worry about Jimmy in general because he looks good for 90% of the game and then throws 2 passes that you're like, what the hell, dude? And they could both be terrible turnovers, and that happens. You're not going to get that from Rodgers. So we have a team going on the road into hostile territory against a team that is healthier than they were before, much, 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 much healthier. San Francisco is not healthier. They've lost some health points. And you don't have the better quarterback if you're the Niners. You have the much better running game, although Green Bay's running game is no slouch. I think this spread is appropriate. A lot of people on the Niners, and I totally understand why. Debo's awesome. Kittle's been killing. Their offense has looked much, much better since they were playing during this game. And they were still competitive. Now, this was at home. Rodgers still looked good. Adams dominated. 12 receptions, 132 yards, and a touch. I got to have his props in here. This San Francisco secondary is not great. That's not how they want to win the game. And to the point where I wonder, are they just going to let Adams eat and just shut down everybody else? And it's not like basketball where you can really do that because you're not capped out at 50 points like a lot of basketball players are, right? Like, Adams could go for 20 catches if you let him do that. So you can't all the way do that, but I don't know if they're going to triple cover him and leave other things open, like the running game and the tight ends and stuff like that. So I don't know what they do to slow him down, but I like that matchup with Rodgers a little healthier, off of a bye, Adams feeling good. They already shredded this defense. They're getting them again. You had Trey Sermon in this game. You didn't have Elijah Mitchell. You didn't have Jawan Jennings. I get this team is very different, this Niners team, but that doesn't change the fact that Rodgers has a dream matchup. And so does Adams. And I just don't know if there are player personnel that can overcome this issue. Adams catches everything in double coverage or not. He scored in this game. This is going to have to be the Niners trying to run the football, get creative. Kittle might have to block again. Although he has dream matchups 2 weeks in a row. They didn't use him last week. It's too hard to... I'm not diving back into that because I got burned last week. I was big on Kittle, receptions and receiving yards. And I'm not going to do it again because he can impact the game so much while having 2 receptions for 15 yards. So it's just not the prop that I want to take. I have some that I like. I have a side that I like with an alternate spread. But this is going to be an intro to a flexible parlay, I'm going to call it. Because I like the props that I have on both sides, and I can see you plugging in an alternate spread for either team, and the odds will remain relatively the same. So whichever one you like, I think my parlay will still work for this game, which is nice. And I have 2 of those this week, actually. And so you'll see when we get towards the end of the show and I give the picks. But yeah, I just think the Rodgers-Adams connection is like, what do you do? And you could say the same thing about Debo on the other side. I get that. But the Garoppolo health, the Garoppolo turnover issue, does Trey Lance need to come into the game? Do we see him get more packages? Are we comfortable with that? The weather, the Green Bay defense getting all their pieces back. The San Francisco defense having all their pieces, but is Bosa actually healthy? Is he playing at 50%? Is Warner playing at 50%? There's a lot of question marks, and there's a lot of people on the Niners. And I'm not eager to fade Rodgers in this spot. I understand the Niners have had success against this team in the playoffs. They've had success against Rodgers in the playoffs. I'm not throwing that to the side. I think it matters. I think there's a world where they run it down their throats and win the football game. It's easier for me to back Rodgers and Adams together in a plus matchup because even if they're down late, throw to him 5 times on a final drive and you might end up scoring. Rodgers has done it before, so I don't feel as comfortable with the Niners playing from behind. And for that reason, you can tune in at the end to get the picks. But that's kind of where I stand on that game mostly. Now, Rams-Bucks. Let me tell you, it's another game where I started saying, I'm not going to bet the side. And I still am super torn. There's injuries in this game. You're seeing it right here. Whitworth will not play on the offensive line. I think that hurts them a lot against a healthier defensive front for the Buccaneers. The Bucs defense looked a lot better with all their pieces back, which I predicted was going to happen. And people weren't pricing that in against the Eagles. And I'm like, okay, they're going to blow them out, though, because their real defense is back. And the secondary still stinks, don't get me wrong, but the front seven was fortified. And now with a fortified front seven and no left tackle and Stafford prone to picks, I am a little worried. Taylor Rapp not going to play either, which is rough. It's not good news for them. And I liked the Rams' chances because I liked everything I saw from them. They have the roster. They've started to figure out how to use Von Miller, how to use Odell Beckham. Van Jefferson's still a weapon. I liked what I saw from Tyler Higbee. The offensive line looked good. Stafford didn't make mistakes. Cam Akers is back. I get all of it. But these injuries are bad. So I still like the Rams side because from what I've seen from the Bucs, the Godwin thing, they haven't really figured out. I think Fournette comes back this week. We got to stay tuned on that. This is going to be another one of those flexible parlays, but for a different reason. If he comes back, hopefully he catches some passes out of the backfield. They like to pass to the running backs. If he's not there, it's going to be more Gio Bernard and Vaughn stuff. They looked pretty good. Brady is definitely desperate for a consistent weapon to replace Godwin. You have Gronk. He hasn't had that 10-reception game that I've been waiting for, and I'm going to stop chasing it now. Evans does what Evans does every week, but he's going to be lined up with Ramsey every snap. I think that's just going to be a full shadow. So I don't like that matchup. I won't be betting his props. And this Rams defense just looked really good. And you have Weddle back to replace Rapp for some snaps, I guess. I think the Rams might be clicking at the right time, which is scary for the Bucs. I very rarely want to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs, but this game feels pretty Ramsey, pun intended, and I like getting the points in a game where both these teams are oddly conservative. Maybe not oddly, but I think they are some of the more conservative teams in the league these days. They'll kick field goals. They both play by the book a little bit, for lack of a better term. And in a game that could easily be decided by 3 points, I don't necessarily feel comfortable giving the 3. And Tampa's been great at home all year, so I'm not discounting that. They could come out and score 40, and everyone's like, oh, that Rams defense, what happened? They looked good for 1 week because Kyler was terrible. Maybe. But I'm feeling like a Rams alternate spread up to even 10 or a tease or however you want to do it is probably more in my wheelhouse. I think that's where we're going to go with this. But I do like some props in this one. We got to wait to see if Fournette is playing. I really think that matters a lot for Tampa. A lot. And a lot for the game in general. They need him. The Gio Bernard Vaughn stuff is going to wear off eventually. It has to, right? I don't understand how that can keep up. Vaughn's looked awesome. And Gio is fine. But man, against the Rams and Donald, like those guys are small. They're going to get beat up. They need Fournette to at least take the punishment and try to give some back, if nothing else. So I just see a lot of issues on the offensive line too for Tampa. Like Jansen got hurt last week. He came back into the game. The other kid whose name I can't recall right now, high draft pick, Wirfs, and Murphy Bunting too on the defense. But I mean, man, that's bad. Wirfs looked much more injured than Jansen. Jansen came back, and it seems like he'll play. I don't know. They're probably both going to try to gut it out, but that doesn't mean they're healthy, and that doesn't mean they're going to be able to block Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd and Von Miller and the rest of that crew. So I'm concerned about that, and when Brady's under pressure up the middle, we've seen it for 2 decades now that can cause problems. And if Murphy Bunting is hurt in the secondary, remember how, I mean, their secondary is still bad. Remember how terrible it was early in the year when he was hurt? They had nobody. They were hoping Richard Sherman could play safety. It was bad. And with how the Rams looked throwing the ball down the field last week, and Cooper Kupp coming to town, and Odell Beckham, and Higbee, and Jefferson, who all like to streak down the field, man, I just think their matchup is playing into the Rams' hands. Maybe I'm buying too much Kool-Aid here, but that's how it feels to me. Bills-Chiefs, though, too many people on the Bills. Just way too many. I don't like to buy into the team that blows another team out the week before. Only if no other reason than I just think the action will go towards that team more often than not. And it will be baked into the spread when it shouldn't be. And so I was impressed by Josh Allen. I've been ragging on Josh Allen for years now. I saw him throw that touch pass over the top. And that was the one where I was like, oh, he has added some new tricks here. Because I knew he could run. There's no doubt about it. He's huge. He imposes his will on defenses. But I thought he was either 100-mile-an-hour sling it or nothing. And maybe he still is. And maybe he just found a good throw there. But that touch pass opened my eyes a little bit to be like, he's working on stuff. And so I have no doubt they're going to score. And I have no doubt Kansas City's going to score. I like the price on Kansas City. How often do you get them -1.5 at home? Under good circumstances when they're pretty healthy and getting healthier. They get Hilaire back this week. They have all their weapons. Their line is fine. Mahomes is fine. Hill is fine. Kelsey's fine. Most of the time, this is going to be 3. Kansas City has a good home field advantage. The crowd's going to be rocking. Josh Allen is prone to turnovers more than Pat Mahomes is. I'm not saying Buffalo doesn't deserve the respect that they're getting, but I don't think it should be baked into the line, and it feels like it is. So I feel like I'm getting a point's worth of value here with Kansas City compared to where it should be. I'm not eager to take the Kansas City money line because I think in a shootout, you could get either side, and you might be better off taking the odds on the underdog. But I sure as hell will place an alternate spread bet on Kansas City because I just think they're undervalued and I can get them at +7.5 at odds that I shouldn't be able to get them there at. So I like that. I like props in that game too. And honestly, you just hammer the over, right? Let's not overthink this. These teams are going to score. They could go a quarter without scoring and then have, easily, without any question, 2 touchdowns a quarter. Could be 3. So I think these teams could get to 60 while scuffling for 10 minutes. I don't see how this would even be a defensive battle. Because in the second half, they're going to kick it up a notch. Like, I could see waiting till halftime and bet the over for the second half if there's a slow start to the game. Because that feels good to me. And any live updates or up-to-the-minute updates, follow me on Twitter at Mike Mush Sports. I'm always giving stuff there. Sometimes I add picks. Sometimes I alter them. And I'll panic or gloat or do commentary during the games most of the time. Also on the Instagram at Mike Mush Sports. Follow that too. But yeah, I just feel like Kansas City, you're getting some value here. You can get the over. You can find a teaser. You can find an alt spread parlay. You can find some stuff that really looks good to me. And more than anything, I'm just fading a lot of public on Buffalo. I just can't believe the line is moving toward. I can believe it because they blew out the Pats and they deserve every ounce of respect. Like I said, Josh Allen looks great. He's going to be a problem to defend. I'm not saying he can't win the game. I just think this won't be close. Like, even the first time these two played, this is a rematch too, right? We go back to that game. Now, that game was in the rain. It was in a storm. I was in Texas. I was right outside of Jerry World. Where are we? And week 5. And we were coming down off the highs from that Cowboys win and watching this game. And there was a huge weather delay. And it was like a tornado in Dallas. And it was wild. And even then, we were like, all right, the Chiefs are going to come back in this game, right? There was some bad refereeing. There were some weird calls. Kansas City fell behind. You look at the box score. Allen ran it a lot in this one. Looked pretty good. Didn't turn it over. Mahomes did turn it over. And Kelsey and Hill, both pedestrian numbers for their standards. Dawson Knox crushed. I kind of do like some of his parlays. I don't have it on the card currently, but I do like the Dawson Knox. There's some boosts out there that I saw that I'm kind of into. And this was before McKenzie was really doing a lot for them. I haven't been able to get that on my book. We could check FanDuel, see if it's there. But I think if you can get him at the over for catches, receiving props. Yeah, he's not even listed currently on here. That's for yards. I actually like his receptions better, but it's still not there. You can get Dawson Knox at 3.5, though. That's kind of nice. But if you can find McKenzie props, I think he's going to be involved for sure. But yeah, this game was weird. It was just turnovers versus not turnovers, I think. And we knew, I said it like way long ago. Maybe it was even after this game on the show that Kansas City was turning it over like way more than you can expect them to turn it over early in the year. And that was the problem with their offense. It was fluky stuff. Some of them were earned, some of them were bad, but they're not doing that much anymore. And so I think if you remove those turnovers, you remove the weather, and you kind of balance out the performance here, it won't shock me if this is a close game, even this one. And I don't think Mecole Hardman is going to get 9 catches. This was just a weird game to me. And I was big on the Chiefs in this game. Big. And I lost it. But I didn't come out of the game going, oh, that was a stupid pick. Maybe it was. But I'm kind of willing to take them at home. The spread was different in this game too. But I'm willing to take them at home at almost having to give no spread. I mean, that's a little wild to me. So I'm totally in on that. That's pretty much where I stand on all the games. Let's get to the picks because we got a lot of them. There's 8. Let's break them down, see what we got. Like I said, we're risking 8 units. I'm tracking units, by the way. I have been since the start of the year. From the start of the year, we're up 8.8 units. This month, that's 3 weeks. It's pretty good, I think. And last week, we were actually up 6.3 units, which is really good. So like I said, we're sticking with these high-paying parlays. I have one same-game parlay for every game this week. There's 4 of them. I have 3 prop boosts I like that I've found on Caesars, but you can find these pretty much anywhere. All the sites are doing them, and even if you don't have a boost for it, you can go in and make the parlay yourself. It's all available. So I really like that one. And then I have a bonus overall parlay with a couple of games combined that we're going to go into. By the way, we have UFC picks for Saturday, UFC 270. If you didn't catch yesterday's video, it's on the YouTube. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube, hit the button. It takes you 2 seconds. You could do it right now. You'll be done before I even shut up with this spiel. Hit the like button, leave a comment, do all the stuff, share it, tell your mom, tell your friends. It's important. It helps. And Ngannou as a dog. I mean, what are we doing? But NFL picks. Let's start. Let's go in order. The Derrick Henry rushing props just came out before we went live for this video, and I snatched it as soon as I could because I really like the over here. Cincinnati struggles to defend. I heard on the Ringer Gambling show, I think, that they are one of the worst teams in explosive run rate, which tells you that they get to the secondary with the running back more often than a lot of teams do. And when Derrick Henry gets to the secondary, he's probably not going to be stopped. It won't, I mean, this is a wild statement, but it won't shock me if he hits these rushing yards in one run. That kind of day. Now, if he's not healthy, then, you're just screwed. But I'm willing to roll the dice there. So my same game parlay is a 3-way parlay for Titans-Bengals. Derrick Henry over 79.5 rushing yards. Jamar Chase over 5.5 receptions. And A.J. Brown over 5.5 receptions. Now, this is some narrative based for all of these. I think Chase has been busting on the scene all year, but I really think that last week he showed me, oh, okay, I know we have a bunch of games where sometimes T. Higgins is the guy, sometimes Tyler Boyd gets 7 receptions or targets, sometimes Uzoma is getting more action than some people think he should, but I think he's actually pretty good. I could get on board with his props too. It's not on the card, but maybe he scores a touchdown in this one. But last week, it looked like, okay, when the chips are down, Chase is getting the ball. And 5.5 receptions is kind of wild because the Adams number, Devontae Adams is at 7.5, Cooper Kupp's at 8.5, and I think Jamar Chase is like approaching that status. And maybe Vegas hasn't factored it in yet. So I think getting Jamar Chase as 5.5 it's almost free, especially if they're trailing, which I think they might be. So I like that. And A.J. Brown over 5.5 receptions too is like, I know if you look at his game log, he doesn't always hit that number, but he hasn't been healthy all year. He seems healthier than he has been. And Cincinnati is, by my estimation, and this is why I like these synergistic same-game parlays, right? Because if you think Derrick Henry is going to hit the over for 79.5 rushing yards, which I do, they're going to have to pull safeties down into the box to deal with that. And A.J. Brown is going to be over the middle, just gobbling up catches, because no one's going to be able to handle him, because you still got to keep an eye on Julio down the field and stuff like that. So if you have single high safety, you're going to have Brown slanting over the middle, 5-yard in, no problem. He's going to get the ball. I don't see how he wouldn't get the ball. So I think those synergize pretty well. And I think if that works, their offense is going to have success. Cincinnati's going to have to throw, which they want to do anyway. And Chase will be the benefactor. So with those three, Henry over rushing yards, Chase over receptions, A.J. Brown over receptions, plus 550. Seems like good odds to me. I was waiting on those Derrick Henry numbers to come out. They did today, and 79.5 feels like a light number. I guess they're factoring in the injury concerns, but I will roll the dice on that one. Packers-Niners. Now, this is one of my flexible parlays, because in here, I have Packers plus 3.5 as one of the 4 legs of this parlay. But I acknowledge that if you're on the Niners and not the Packers, you could make it Niners plus 10.5 for a similar price. So the rest of these 3 I stand by completely. I took the Packers plus 3.5 because if they do lose, I imagine it's going to be because Mason Crosby misses a field goal, right? And if he does, I'll clip this. I'll put it on the social media. It'll be funny. He misses a lot of field goals. Their special teams is atrocious, actually. I am a little worried about that. But I think it will bite them if the game is close. I totally understand taking Niners plus 10.5, though. It's just their defensive injury concerns that worry me. So I got Packers plus 3.5. Devontae Adams over 7.5 receptions. I think that one is, I don't want to say free because 7.5 is a big number, but he should be approaching 15 in this game. I don't see why they wouldn't throw to him a lot. This secondary cannot handle him. I'm also putting in Devontae Adams touchdown. Same reason. And red zone, they love to throw to Adams. They love the 1-yard fade. They love the quick routes. He gets the ball in the red zone constantly. There are no other weapons aside from a 1-yard run that are going to stop Adams from being the target, right? All game long. So I like that. And then I really love Eli Mitchell over 80.5 rushing yards. He has been crushing. 4 weeks in a row, he's gone over this number. He's gone over 100 a bunch of times. We know they are going to make a concerted effort to run the ball against a Packers defense that I think has improved, and that's why I'm taking Packers plus 3.5. They're getting their horses back, but they have struggled on the ground a bunch of times this year. And Eli Mitchell didn't play in that first matchup. I think he'll be ready to go. I think we know he's going to get the ball. It's hard to decipher who's going to get the ball on this Niners team aside from Debo and Eli Mitchell, because we know that they have been fed constantly throughout the second half of the year. And Mitchell just getting the ball this much, I'm just confident that he's going to turn out 4 yards a carry and probably get 20 carries. Unless they really give Debo 10 carries, but usually I think it'll be down towards 5. And Mitchell obviously can get explosive and break a run here. So the only thing holding that back would be if the Niners just get smacked and can't run the ball, but I don't anticipate that happening either. So we got a 4-leg parlay on that one. Packers plus 3.5. Adams over 7.5 receptions. Adams touchdown. Eli Mitchell over 80.5 rushing yards. Those seem to synergize for me, and we get it at plus 625. Not bad. Now the Rams game. This one is very TBD. Okay, so I don't have odds, and I don't have exact numbers for you yet, but I know what I'm looking for, and I'll update you at Mike Mush Sports on Twitter when these lines come out. Fournette has not announced whether he will play or not. It matters to me. I will be taking a Tampa Bay running back receiver number because I think they're still trying to replace Godwin, and Brady is dumping down to those receivers, to those running backs rather, as receivers a bunch. And so I like it if it's Fournette, and if it's not Fournette, I might go back to Gio. But I think Fournette will play in this game. And also, I'm in on Kupp's numbers, but I haven't yet decided if it's receiving yards or receptions. His receptions are 8.5. His receiving yards are about 100. 8.5 feels like a really high number. I'm thinking about going for the yards probably, but that's TBD. And a big reason it's TBD is because I might throw Higbee into this as well. I haven't fully decided, but his numbers are pretty low, and I've liked what I've seen from him lately, but it really depends, and those numbers aren't out there for me. The prop numbers, for some reason, aren't there yet for me. So what I know I like is Rams plus 10.5 on an alt spread. I will definitely be looking at Fournette receiving yards over. If Fournette is not playing, it will be Gio Bernard receiving yards over. I like Kupp's receiving numbers, and that's probably where we're going to land. If I throw in Higbee, maybe take a peek out for that. But Rams plus 10.5, Fournette yards over, backup is Gio, and Kupp probably receiving yards over 100. I don't know what that will pay out. It will be pretty large. I would imagine it'll be in the 300 to 400 range. Hard to say. If the odds aren't speaking to me, maybe I'll throw Higbee receptions in there if we can get a good number. But that's going to have to be one of these flexible parlays based on who's playing and who's not. We have time for that. Check back on the Twitter because I will surely update it, and we'll see what happens. We move on to the Chiefs game. I like Chiefs plus 7.5 on the alt spread. I can't imagine a world where they get blown out. I know they lost at home by 18 in the other game, but that was a storm. It was weird. This team has improved a lot since then. I think we're fading public, who is loving Buffalo a little too much right now, so I like Chiefs plus 7.5. I'm getting an alternate over at 47.5. You could pump this one higher. You could even take the regular over. I think it'll approach 60, but I feel very, very safe saying that each team will get 3 touchdowns and a field goal, which would hit the over 47.5. So we're putting those two together. I like Kelce over 5.5 receptions. Let me tell you why. Generally, in this kind of game, the way Buffalo structures their defense, they're playing high safeties, and they really cheat Tyreek Hill a lot. And we've noticed them do this to big receivers all year, really. And what the Chiefs generally do against that is to stack their receivers all on one side. You'll get the Hills, the Mecole Hardmans, the Bryson Pringles of the world, all on one side, to make sure they're occupying that high safety over there, who they know is going to cheat towards the speedy receivers. And then all the way on the other side, where they know there won't be safety help, and they would have to just straight up double and bracket with a linebacker in a corner or whatever they have available, will be Travis Kelce. And so if Kelce's working one-on-one and the Bills are just concerned with stopping the over-the-top stuff, both teams might be okay with Kelce just catching those dump downs, and whatever happens, happens. So I like that 5.5 receptions number for Kelce. And then the last leg of the 4-leg same-game parlay for this one is going to be Josh Allen over 50.5 rushing yards. The Bills have unleashed Josh Allen recently. I think he's gone over 60 like for a month straight. I see no reason why this game will be different. He knows he has to have the ball in his hands constantly in this game. Everything runs through him. He's looking like a schoolyard quarterback, longest yard Josh Allen edition. I just feel like this is actually a pretty easy number. He came out in the first quarter of last game and started running all over the place. Sometimes he gets 30 yards in the first drive. And if it comes down to it late, they're not going to spy Josh Allen, because I don't think they believe that their spy can get a hold of him and take him down. So he's going to probably be free to run a lot of the time. And the Chiefs might end up saying to themselves, well, at least it keeps the clock running. It limits the big plays. And if we're ahead, maybe we deal with that. So I think Josh Allen over 50.5 rushing yards is something that both teams might concede will happen. So that one is going to be Chiefs plus 7.5, over 47.5. Kelce over 5.5 receptions, Josh Allen over 50.5 rushing yards, and that gets you plus 500. So far, if we hit one of those 4, now we don't know what the Rams odds are or the parameters of it, we are in the black. and we're feeling good. So let's get to the props and boosts that I saw. Again, I saw these on Caesars, so the odds might be a little different for wherever you get it. But in any case, you can make these parlays if you want and build it yourself. And the first one is going to be Debo. I love Debo. I've been saying he should get MVP voting. He gets involved regardless in every way. And so I'm comfortable taking Debo over 49.5 rushing yards combined with Debo over 49.5 receiving yards. It's dicey. I wish I could just get it as combined yardage, but that's not where the value in the odds is going to come from. So I'm going to have to roll the dice here that they maintain some balance and that it's not just 100 receiving yards and 30 rushing yards, which would lose, but the spirit of it would remain. But the reason I'm doing this is because I'm getting it at plus 350 odds, and I find that pretty ridiculous. For a guy that I know will be getting the ball, he will rush it and he will catch it. So, yeah, I think that feels like a steal to me. And even if it doesn't hit, we have 3 props and boost here. And again, we're to the point where if we hit one of them, we're way in the black. My second one is going to be A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase. I'm digging, not dicking, back into the well for this one because we did the receptions and now I want the yards. And I saw a boost of A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase each to get 100 receiving yards at plus 750. And while I acknowledge it's hard to get 100 receiving yards, it's not that hard for these guys. And A.J. Brown, I think, is undervalued on all of his lines just because of the health factor. And I don't know why. I think people just assume they're going to run the ball constantly, which I think they will. But I think that opens up Brown even more. And Tannehill on third down slings it. And he often slings it to A.J. Brown. So plus 750 for that feels like, man, at 500, I would have felt like that was a steal. So see where you can get those numbers. But I really liked it. And I think both of those guys it's not a coming out party. They're known as superstars. But this is where superstars take the stage, right? Divisional round. It's time, baby. Last boost, I really like Mahomes, Brady, and Stafford over 2.5 passing touchdowns each. Plus 1,200. That's a good one. Mahomes should easily get there. Brady, I never will doubt. He has the hardest matchup of the 3, but he really likes to throw in short yardage on the goal line even. And it does worry me that Fournette will be back. I mean, the vultures worry you in general here, right? Because if they get to the 1 and run it, it's like, yeah, that happens, and that'll screw you. But that's what the odds are for, the plus 1,200. Hoping that we don't get to the 1 yard line. Hoping we stay at the 5 and throw it in. So Mahomes, Brady, Stafford over 2.5 pass touchdowns. Plus 1,200. Give me that. It could make up for every other bet that we make this week. If we just hit that one and lost every other one, we would profit 4 units on the week. And to me, that's just worth the price of admission. Now, I like one overall parlay because I liked some of these numbers a little more than others. I wanted to double dip on some of them and combine them in a different way. So what we're going to do is Chiefs plus 7.5. I can't get myself off of that. I understand the allure for the Bills, but I can't. I'm zagging when you zig. Then Chiefs Bills over 46.5. We talked about that. That feels free. Adams over 7.5 receptions against the 49ers. Love it. And Rams plus 10.5 against the Bucks. I think they can win. And if I'm getting a 2 score, I'm totally down with that defense. These are the 4 favorite things that I really liked. I'm putting them all together at plus 257. And that's it. That's 8 picks. That's divisional round. That's all the games. The only things we don't know are Fournette's status, his receiving yards, and Kupp's numbers. But we will get there. And like I said, if you want to exchange the Packers line for the Niners line or the Chiefs line for the Bills line, you can do all that because alternate spreads work generally the same in both directions. I mean, when you're crossing key numbers, it'll adjust the odds for you a little bit. But I think there's a lot of money to be made here without needing to go on a limb taking sides in some games that could be really close and awesome. You can bypass all that. It's not 1975 anymore where you just have to take the side and then you have no other options. The world is our oyster. We're legal betting in New York, baby. And it's everywhere. And if it's not, I'm sure your bookie's got some good stuff. But, don't tell them I sent you. Or do. And subscribe. And like. And share. and hit the notification bell so you know exactly when we're going live, because it's important. Schedule's all over the place. Things pop up. We did UFC yesterday because we had to do football today, and stuff starts tomorrow. And you guys got to know. So you're here. You can join the chat. We can chat live. You can tell me how nonsensical some of my picks are. You can pitch me some of yours. Leave some comments on the video. Share it with your friends. We'll talk sports constantly. We'll be back next week to recap some of these games and to look towards championship weekend. I can't believe we're going to be there already. Hit up the Twitter at Mike Mush Sports. Don't miss it. I will be ranting and raving throughout all the games, and I'll see you there. Peace out.